so that he could lose brain cells listening to this?
I think that there's a lot other things that he could be doing that would be worse than listening to us.
He gets one high in the air. Left field. This one's got a chance. And let's go on a cowhide. Jory Ride. Sound the horn. The RailCats clear the yard.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome to the RailCats Talk podcast, where we talk about the Gary Stout Shore RailCats, I guess now, as the American Association has now deemed them to be, because they still haven't changed their graphic. So yeah, he's Chuck Polarek. I'm Kyle Svetich. Chuck, how do you feel about them not changing the graphic? I mean, they've been called out on it, and they still haven't changed it.
I think that I think that we should start becoming the RailCats talk
RailCats.
podcast, and
Okay.
I am Chuck Olarick for now
Mm.
on. We're just gonna randomly remove a letter from everything that we say and start something. I mean, obviously it's something that they're trying to start, and well, hey, no, it's you know what? Everybody makes a mistake. They've got to point it out. They haven't done anything about it. That's kind of crazy.
That's the part that's crazy to me. All right, because when I make a mistake and someone calls it out on me, at least I try to adjust it. I
Yeah.
try.
I think that it's been long enough that we should probably see a an apology letter on official letterhead
I would agree.
to all Railcats fans, specifically to Cooper Edwards,
Hmm.
um, and apologizing for all the harm that has caused both him and his family, and his fans. So I look forward to seeing that apology letter here pretty soon.
Well, we probably know that's not going to happen. So yeah, but what is going to happen at the time of the recording is we are 100 days away from the home opener of the Railcats.
Excited.
So excited about that. Last week was, 100 days, probably a week and a half. But anyways, I'm excited about that. I'm really amped up this year for baseball season. I was sitting there today at work and I had a steam a mitt and I said, I can't wait to get my mitt out and go to the steel yard and catch some foul balls. That was last year wasn't as high as it was the year before, but maybe because I sat in a different spot this year, got more players giving balls than foul
Yeah.
balls.
Well, I mean, you're gonna have to come to more games this year than you plan on because if you only show up to 3 games, you're not gonna get that many foul balls. So that's first.
Well,
Second thing is you're gonna have to protect Mama. So she can't be over there where the line drive can come at her. She's
I
got to
don't
be
I,
behind the screen now. So
I don't know how much Mama's actually gonna be there.
well, Mama better be there because it's child neglect if you don't show up to that.
So at this point, the logistics behind it is if we both leave for work and we both don't get off until 7, someone's got to take care of the dogs. And
Dog's got to be put down.
no,
I mean,
that will.
give it away.
uh, but just to get into this week, Chuck, do you have any takeaways from our conversation with Nick and Ryan?
It was a fun-filled evening. Definitely love the conversation. Was really intrigued by the level of knowledge that they
Hmm.
had, specifically when it comes to um, uh, players and the leagues in general. I thought that was great. I think it's great that people have that kind of time and dedication to be able to put into that. So that was really cool. Um, you know, it, I, a lot of times we try to look at the glass half full, right?
Hmm.
Or a quarter of the way full, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's not nice when they point out that the glass is actually just full of a little bit of ice and there isn't much liquid in there, right? So, um, but I liked it. I liked it.
No, I think it's nice to have an outside perspective on the situation. Obviously, we try to keep it half full just because we're there every day. And realistically, me and you are both on the same wavelength of wanting these players to succeed and uh, are not necessarily not candy coating it, but it's one of those that we both want the team to win, but also if we have the players and they are succeeding, and they move on to bigger and better things. In my eyes, that's also a win. And I know when you look at the league in general, the people that actually care about what goes on in the league cares about the wins and losses.
Right.
And as a whole, when uh, there was a whole thing on Twitter after I think it was Ryan reposted something and we were talking about the manager grade that they gave Lamar for their manager review kind of thing, and they this year they gave him a D. Last year was a C minus, which is a little bit understanding. The product in the field really hasn't been the best, but in my eyes, maybe a little bit lower or a little bit higher than what I was expecting, just because you're based off the record. And someone tweeted back and said, "Well, I wouldn't have gave him that grade. I would have gave him something lower." And Ryan said, "Oh, well, I'm sympathetic to more of the the situation per se." The thing is the people that actually not saying they don't care, but the people that care about the RailCats care about going to the games and not necessarily the wins or losses, the ones that are always there. They care about wins and losses, but it's more than just that. It's a family atmosphere. They're reconnecting with people. That's the thing that they like to do during the summertime. Then you have the outside people that only care about what goes on the field. So I think it was just nice having that perspective and seeing, you know, what I assume is something that's going wrong or what you're assuming is something going wrong, and you have someone on the outside going, well, no, actually, this is what we kind of think it is, and you kind of mesh it together.
Right.
If
Right. Well, here's a little spin I'll put on that. Right. So Lamar is given a D. Um, you'll realize this as your child gets older that in the United States of America, a majority of the time D is passing. So even if your child gets a D, they still pass. So realistically, a D is acceptable. So we'll go with that. We'll say, hey, thank you for the passing grade on Lamar. We won't mention what it is. We'll just say thank you for the passing grade, and we'll run with it. I think that I've said this before. We've got growing pains.
Mhm.
We've got a guy that uh, not so much experience in the league. And, you've kind of given him the full ship of saying, hey, not only do you need to be the captain, but you also need to figure out where all this other stuff's going to go. And you need to be the guy that stores the cargo. And you got to be the guy that does this and that and this and that. And we put 15 hats on a guy and expected him right out of the chute to be, winning. And that's not the way you put together the pieces of the puzzle. So, maybe some things need to change, but also time, right?
Mhm.
It's one of those things where, hey, he tried some things last year, things got worse. Okay, what do you do now? Now you make some more changes. You try to right the ship a little bit more in a different direction, see what happens. So, hey, give him a D. This is the season that matters, not last season.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I don't know how much, and a lot of the issues I don't want to put the full blame on obviously Lamar Rodgers. Half the blame also has goes on the players as well. And I think in the comment that I was told from Ty when he resigned, when I said, every player that either gets signed or re-signed, I try to say welcome or welcome back, blah, blah. And he said, he basically said, I'm just here to try, or not, I'm just here to correct the ship, but it was more or less like I'm on board, try to, correct the ship. So he may now be Captain Ty in my eyes, but I'm just saying, I feel like some of these players that are coming back have something more to prove, and that what last year wasn't a true resemblance of themselves, if that makes sense.
I agree with that. It's, you know, it's a virus. It went through the team. Everybody started doing poorly. You'd have these glints of doing okay. Uh, even some glimpses of wow, this is going to be fantastic. But it it was a virus that went through and it brings everybody down. We need some healthy people. We need some people that are reliable. And I think that that's I mean, hey, Ty's first year in the league. Uh, you had Irwin coming back from surgery. You had Diaz first year in the league. I mean, it happens, and you're not bringing in guys like I mean, this is my big question. You're bringing in a lot of young guys,
Hmm.
young in experience, right? And even if you brought in some guys that were double A or single A or whatever, had some affiliate time, okay. These other teams are bringing in ex-MLB guys that have nothing to prove. They're out there to have fun,
Hmm.
and and it's noticeable. And so, how do you compete with that? That's the part that I worry about. Is how do you compete with that? Because I mean, you know, it's
I still maybe it comes to the point to where Ryan, asking around the league and talking about Lamar, and some people still don't know who he quite is. And I don't know if that's one, a lack of social media, if that's just a lack of, I'm not saying communication throughout the league, but if you're not consistently, I don't really know how to put in the words for it, still not knowing where to go and still being young-ish into the league, being this is his fourth season going into it. It's just one of those that I don't know, not having that full-on connection of bringing in those MLB players that like, oh, 29, 30. I know I'm not going to make it back into affiliate ball. Give me one last hurrah and let me try to compete for something. So I just don't know if that's quite at that point yet because he may not have those connections fully in there. I would rather see a, a full team of young players that have the potential to right now we can't really say we need a rebuild or a product throughout the future. So I mean, right now the roster it needs to be built to win at this point.
I agree. I agree. And
Um,
getting some hungry guys in there is fine. You can definitely see somebody that kind of overachieve when they're hungry.
mhm.
But I don't know that overachieving when you're hungry without that mix of experience is
Yeah.
is going to get you as far as you need to go.
No, I
So,
agree. You have to be able to sprinkle in those uh class clown kind of people
well, I
that
mean,
that
just I
well,
talked to it was what last year, when I was like, hey, why don't we get um, an experienced catcher
mhm,
that has MLB experience, and Hector Sanchez. Why don't we bring him in? Because now you can get these inexperienced pitchers
mhm,
and he'll be able to guide them and help them, right? And you've got these catchers that are new and they're inexperienced also. He can help them, and now you've got that solid platform, that solid part right there that and he would love to do something like that. So bring in a guy like that can kind of take you to that solidifying those two parts of your game. And then really you just need somebody that's out there that can take care of the fielding. So you get yourself a leader out in the fielding and you get yourself, a heavy bat, get you a good batter and you're good, but you got to have that experienced guy. And I don't know that you can go without that. But
no,
that's my recipe for success, and I don't even know that it's a recipe for success because I'm not in those shoes. But
well, no, I don't. What I mean by class clown is someone that's going to come to the ballpark no matter what the situation is and be able to lighten the mood.
absolutely,
I think you can't have too many people that are fiery and hungry to keep getting better and better without having that veteran presence or someone to kind of like cool the waters when things get too heated, is what I mean by that. I didn't mean like class kind of like, oh, why is this guy in the roster? Because all he does is goof
Oh,
around. Not,
no, 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 no. I know you somebody that to kind of cool it down and help these guys relax, enjoy the game, point out those things that, hey, look around you. You got 2,000, 3,000, four
Mhm.
thousand people here cheering for you. Go out there and give them a show, you know?
I agree. So we did have three re-signings of the 2025 season, and I think realistically, one or two of them kind of caught us by surprise, if I'm being honest.
Well, well,
It's not because of the play. It was just because the situation.
I, I, the last podcast that we had,
Hmm.
I made it a point and I said, bring back LG. Get a hold of LG, bring him back. Boom, it happened.
Hmm.
So I'm going to try this again because I think that there's somebody, one person listening, and maybe I just got lucky, right? But I'm gonna say, uh, I think that we need to uh, dig into the contacts, and I think that we need to sign us a solid veteran catcher, not a guy that's been in the league for a couple years, not a guy that's got, double A affiliate time. I'm talking bring me a good, experienced catcher. There's some out there that have 10 plus years of professional baseball under their belt. Bring one of those guys in. Let's see if it happens.
So on the
Oh,
28th,
and that's not a dig against Cooper either. So don't, I mean, I know that Coop's a great catcher in that, but he has a lot of room to grow. If you
yeah.
bring in a solid guy, it helps him become more successful. That's all that I'm saying.
No, no, I wasn't going that way either. I was saying the biggest signing I think we were surprised by because I didn't think it was going to happen just because life goes on and I know LG was managing fitness, I think Planet Fitness or a gym or something like that. So I thought, oh well, he's hanging it up, and then I see that come across. I'm like, oh wow, that's surprising, just because I wasn't sure he was coming back.
No, here's the the thing about LG. LG is a very caring person,
Hmm.
and he um, really cares about the people that he has around him. And seeing that, Geo has kind of disappeared, and that I'm sure that that's not easy for him um, to see that, hey, some of these other guys that he's been in affiliate ball with are either in the show or they're hanging it up, and all of that. I'm sure, just being around people and kind of getting a little bit older, when you're one of those guys that really cares, it kind of wears on you a little bit, I
Hmm.
think. So I think that might be not a single time that I think that was the end for LG's playing, but I I was hopeful that he would stay a Railcat, but I also know that there is probably 11 other teams in the American Association that want him.
Yeah. I agree. Just looking at, last year he played 96 games. He had over 350 at bats, scored 41 runs, had 91 hits, nine triples, nine doubles, three triples, two home runs, 40 RBIs, eight stolen bases, got caught four times, walked 14, struck out 87. He slashed a 249, 279, and a 307 with an OPS of 586. The thing that I tend to forget is he's only 25.
Yeah.
When I went back, I mean, he's been with the RailCats, uh, going on what this is going to be his fourth year.
Three 3 years and I think he was with us for about 3 weeks at the end of a season
Yeah, so
or a
fourth,
month.
he's going on his fourth season, third season starting with the RailCats. Um, you know, I know I've mentioned this before. Last year I did an article. Same thing I've been doing this year, and uh, I just took his two averages, his three averages together, and he was bad at what it came together was like a 300 or I think it was like a 278 or something like that. And he messaged me back and said, it felt like you gave me a backhanded compliment. And I didn't want, that was not the premise of why I said it that way or worded it that way. So this year I worded it a little bit different. Um, I think if you were to ask him how his offensive numbers were, he would probably tell you they weren't the best. But what he didn't show, what didn't happen in the stats department showed off the field. He grew more as a leader. I think he tried to get everyone to uh, find that fire early on the season when things weren't necessarily going the right way. I think he grew off the field. I think that he became someone that was more determined. You see when he stepped onto the field, he was determined to give his best at every moment in time. When other people may not have, it may not felt that way. Like the season could have been out of hand. The season could have been out of hand, and he was still fighting to that last out of the season.
Yeah. I there, I LG stays with
Hmm.
me. And uh there was a period of about a month where I was legitimately concerned that I wouldn't have him back. And really really sad about that thought, right?
Hmm.
LG he has his flaws, okay, but he really is a good human being and a good guy. And I'm 20 something years older than him, and yet when I am wrong about something, he will tell me, Chuck, you're looking at this the wrong way. This is think about this, do this, and have a very good conversation when I'm wrong about something, right? He will. Um, he's he he's just he's a great guy to be around, and the thought of him not being there this year was a sad thought. But hey, you're right. He grew. I believe, and I believe he grew a lot. I also believe that last year's numbers for him were a symptom of more of a constantly not being in the same lineup or having the same lineup, being in different batting orders, constantly, being told at the end there you're not going to play every game. And I'm gonna put a dig at Lamar on this because when your ship is sinking, which it was last year, when your ship is sinking, you don't go after or take away from those that are your solid foundation,
Hmm.
right? And I get it. You know, maybe he wasn't meeting that level of expectation, but come on, man. You had 24 other guys that were not meeting that expectation. And I can tell you two of them that absolutely should have done better and would have done better had the rest of the lineup been succeeding. One of those is Gio Diaz, and the other one is LG. Both of those guys are better, significantly better than their numbers show.
I would agree. I like I said, I think a lot of this when we had a conversation with Nick and Ryan was a lot of the issue offensive struggles were because they were so far out of games by the midway point anyway. So, you get your first out at bat out of hand, out of the way, and it could have been a flyout, where the case may be. And now you're going your third time, and you're down by 10 runs. So instead of taking the pitches, you're going and swinging for the fences.
Oh, if you talk to any pitcher, if they're out there on the mound and they're up by 10 runs, they're not throwing you the strikes that you want. And they're also not concerned about you taking pitches. So, when it comes to something like that, they're not worried about putting you on base, you know? And when you're at the plate and you're swinging for the fences because you need to make something happen,
You know,
and that's not, I'll tell you what, when we're playing small ball, that is not the situation that you will ever win in. I mean, that's when the game's out of
you know,
hand, the game's out of hand, and so the key here is to have some really good pitching. And hopefully we've got some of that, but I don't see that all put together, and then you bring in another that I think was kind of a roller coaster ride in Tiedemann,
mhm.
where, yeah, I see a lot of upswing from him, and you know,
Well,
I think
yeah, I mean, he was signed the same day. Last year, he had a record of 5-10. Played in 22 games, started in 21 of them. He had an ERA of 6.20. He led the team, well, actually tied with Peyton for most innings pitched in the season at 116 and a third. He gave up 146 hits, 89 runs, 80 earned, 13 home runs, 53 walks. He hit 10 batters, struck out 70. He had a whip of 1.7, hits per nine of 11.3, home runs per nine of 1, walks per nine of 4.1, strikeouts per nine of 5.4, and then his strikeout to walk ratio is 1.3. Uh, he was one of those pitchers that we would always see. He would either have his stuff and he'd be on his game, and then it would be like a weak grounder to third, and it seemed like, or just a little blooper over shortstop, that I would always seem to start that roller coaster of, all right, this, and he's a contact pitcher. Don't get me wrong, he's a contact pitcher, but like when he had his pitches, it always seems like the batter just did a little bit better, a little bit worse, I should say, just a little bit worse to make it better, where they would get on base, and it just kind of seemed like it constantly happened, and it just kind of unfolded in on itself, where it was just constantly, one game it'd be lights out, next game it'd be runs after run, and it wasn't consistent innings. It was like every other inning. Like if you just break it down, like he have 3 innings where he had shut the door, and that fourth inning, 5, 6, 7 hits where you would give up 8, 9 runs. Like that's what killed him last year, and I think he is more focused this year of trying to correct that, because I think you don't make a comment correcting the ship to someone if you're not willing to prove yourself that what last year is what I'm not as a pitcher. I mean, you don't get where you're at moving up, getting drafted because of a fluky year that you're not used to the different. It's different. It's a different league. It's a different atmosphere. It's different than being an affiliate ball to a certain extent. Like it's and some of it, I don't know if it's just based on, like, you know we had the discussion about uh Kent Willis seeming to always change people, changing pitches, changing this. Like, so I don't know if there was a if they even had a constant, a consistent, like, hey, this is what needs to happen. This is what you need to do. Like it seemed like almost like the lineup on the offensive side, what they were being told was also flip-flopping.
right. Let me ask you this. We have the big ballpark. And, as you were talking about, the type of pitcher that Ty is, just like you can have hitters that are going to be extremely successful at Gary versus other stadiums, right?
Hmm.
Specifically, give me a power left-handed bat, right? The short porch in right field. You're going to be more successful than giving me a powerful left-hand or right-handed batter, right? Um, and then you see a guy like a Gio Diaz, who, previous year, making contact, getting it out of the infield, but not far enough where it's going necessarily right into the outfielder's gloves, right? And he's very successful. Comes in with more power the next year, and he's hitting it, and he's getting,
Hmm.
line drive to the outfielder, getting out, right? Um, the same thing I think goes with pitching. If you've got a pitcher that is a contact pitcher, maybe a soft contact pitcher, right? Where the guys are going to hit the ball, but it's not going to go very far. It's going to go into the outfield. Well, you're basically having a Gio Diaz,
Hmm.
a pitcher that pitches and every batter is a Gio Diaz from 2 years ago, and you're going to lose,
Yeah.
right? I think that we need to have, and I would say even if you had a guy that threw, grounders, um, and a guy that did pop-ups, you got these pitchers that are pop-up pitchers, you got these
Hmm.
guys that are grounder pitchers. But I think the ones that are the contact pitchers are the ones that aren't going to do very well in Gary. And so maybe that's where somebody like Ty, instead of, you know, hey, I need to work on this, I need to work on that, velocity, whatever. Maybe it's, hey, I need to make sure I get my pitches down,
Hmm.
that it's a ground ball versus a line drive, or versus a blooper over third base, something to that effect. Maybe that's where uh, a pitcher can work on succeeding in Gary.
Yeah, I agree that I think having a pitcher in Gary that may give up a lot of home runs in like the Pioneer League or somewhere else, it still might benefit them in a Gary because you're getting the ball up in the air for people
Right,
in time to react to get to the ball.
right,
Just not let it be a left-handed batter because that thing's gonna go miles.
right. And then you have the other 50 games,
Hmm.
right? So you've got a guy that might be a home run pitcher, that gives up the power fly ball, but how often do you see it like, man, that's out, in Milwaukee, that's out in, 11 other stadiums, right? But
Yeah, I
you
the
hit
the
the ground.
only
Go ahead.
the only issue that I have with like a pitching rotation is that well, it's a pitching rotation. So like it's not like unless you're going to sit them out of the rotation on away games and only have them pitch at home. It's not like fielders where you have a backup or you can move them up or down in the lineup. It, you could rest them for a day or two, but even a pitcher, if he's just a contact pitcher, not all the time he's going to be pitching on the road, and or if it's a guy that gives a lot, it's not all the time he's going to be pitching at Gary. So like it's one of those situations where you have to be able to battle either way. In my case, I would rather have someone it's like a tie that's just going to give up contact because then it's just going to rely on your defense. The home run, I just think giving up home runs is is it's like throwing an interception in football. Like it just turns the tide on everything. You just like
Sucks the air out of the game.
yeah, versus like a bloop single, okay, you can kind of live with
Right.
that. Versus a solo home run that's going 500 feet in left field.
Yeah. Well, okay, but here's the counter side to that. You can lose games either way, right? But I would rather have relief pitchers that are those guys that are the home run guys,
Hmm.
not all of the relief pitchers, so that when hey, we're playing in a short deck stadium, that fence is awfully close, so you're not going to pitch these next 3 games, or whatever, something like that. Absolutely, you can take those opportunities. If the game gets out of hand, we'll throw you in. But if the game's not out of hand, you're not going to be hot the next 3 games.
I guess I'm just looking at it as the out of most of the pitchers that we've gotten on the roster so far. Well, actually, take that back. Uh, realistically, it's looking like our rotation right now is going to be a Peyton Long, Chris Irwin, Anders Diaz, and a Ty Tiedemann right now out of all the pitchers that we have in hand because a Brian, a Jacob, a Jonathan are probably going to be your bullpen guys for right now. I'm just saying that's I guess we're kind of out of that rotation or portion of it that I think he just got it all back together on that front. I don't just, it's one of those that pitching is such a it's so hard because you can build it's easier to build a roster for half of the year on the offensive side than it is the pitching side of it because pitching is so in and out. You can have a team that can play that small ball and you can get everyone to do that and you can probably win up to 50 games at home. 40, 45 games at home and on the road you can win a handful and there and you have a winning record. Pitching it's hard. You can't have a full staff of just power guys and a full
Right.
staff of just contact guys.
So I want, I threw out there that I wanted to make the pitch for us to get, solid, whatever it was. Um, I want to make the claim that we need to get a Greg Manier.
Okay.
That's what we need. We need a Greg Manier, a guy who's been in the league, who has been top two pitchers for a couple of years. Last year, he kind of trailed off a little bit, but a guy like that, that's what we need. We need a guy that's a can be your solid number one that the rest of the league knows is a number one. I don't think we have that right now. I don't think we have a guy that's a solid number one that the rest of the league's going to be like, oh, that's their number one guy.
No, again, here's the optimism part coming out again. When you look at the roster, realistically, the two guys that I could say are going to be that is a potential Anders Diaz and a Peyton Long, just based off the age and what they've put together. I'm not saying that a Chris Irwin necessarily couldn't be. I'm just afraid with the consistent arm injuries that he's going to get hot and then he's going to have to cool off because he's in another arm injury. Not saying that I don't want that to happen. I'm just saying, realistically, when you look at the staff, Chris Irwin should be that guy.
Yeah, well, I mean but that's the thing though, is that Chris Irwin is a anybody in the league would say Chris Irwin is a solid number two pitcher. Okay. He's not the guy that goes out there and you expect him to be lights out. He's a guy that goes out there and you're like, he could be lights out. And I expect him to have a solid game all the time, right? But I don't expect him to go out there and be lights out. And there's pitchers out there that are like that. We had a pitcher at I think he was at Lincoln a couple years ago, or no, it was I can't remember his name. I remember what he looked like. Solomon Bates
Hmm.
was one of those guys where you're like, wow, this is gonna suck because we went up against him, and it wasn't that he was that we did suck. It was just that you've seen him be so lights out throughout the league that it's like, uh-oh, we need a guy like that. And, a Greg Manier could be a guy like that. He's been a guy like that before. If we can get a guy like that, a pitcher like that with that experience coming in, I think he's got a great attitude. That would be fantastic. Um, and I think that would help. That's a guy that could, the rest of the league could be like, he's the number one.
The third signing of the week
Yes.
on January 29th was Cooper Edwards.
Ooh.
And
Did we sign him? Or was that the
well, and
uh,
I think it was the doppelganger doppel
South, was it
yeah,
South Shore that signed him?
the shout my bad, the shout
South Shore?
store
South Shore?
RailCats.
Yeah.
I think it was them. Um He played in 28 games last year. He had 78 bats. He recorded 12 hits, scored 4 runs, two doubles, one triple, two RBIs, stole one base, and got caught once stealing. Drew 9 walks, struck out 27 times. His batting average was 154. On base percentage was 250, slugging 205. On base plus slugging was 445. Behind the plate, he threw out 11 runners out of 44 for 20% stealing. His fielding percentage was 967 with 154 putouts, 21 assists, and 6 errors and 2 pass balls. Now, this is where Cooper became a really quick fan of the RailCats and especially the Rowdy RailCat Cowbell crew. Was when it was July 15th. He went 3 for 4, scored 3 runs, knocked in one, had one double and one triple. He helped the team beat the Lake Country Doghounds 8-5. I can't remember if it was his triple or when he came up to bat. That's when everyone in the stadium kept saying Cooper. So I don't remember which, but that was probably, there's a lot of great moments that happened at the Steelyard. Yes, I understand there wasn't a lot of winning, but there was still some good moments that happened. That
So
one was one of those that was kind of unexpected.
yeah,
It was just a guy that came in. He had a great arm right out the bat. He was someone that we were missing what it felt like because with Guillermo Quintana behind the plate, it felt like the runner would be on first, and next 3 pitches, 2 pitches, the guy would be on third. And Cooper came in and just started gunning everyone down. Uh, he had that connection with Peyton Long, where when Peyton was up and Cooper was behind the plate, like it was lights out for the other team. There was nothing that was going. It seemed like he kind of had the pitching staff together. And yeah, you're right, his offensive numbers probably weren't the best, and that it probably hindered. But realistically, the past handful of years, the big spot that Lamar still has yet to fill is that catching position.
yep,
I'm not saying this. Cooper has an opportunity to compete for that number one spot, but realistically, we need a number one.
yeah, I agree.
I Cooper has it in him.
I think Cooper has to be around guys that have a god awful lot of experience and
Yeah,
knowledge that he can
I agree.
kind of talk to and learn from, right? I mean, it's like, drafting a quarterback number one and having a Brett Favre, you
Hmm.
know, and you're like, hey, for this year, I just want you to talk to him and learn from him, and I think that's where we're at. With Cooper, he just needs somebody that he can just talk to and learn from that can help him with his mechanics, help him to become a better, well-rounded player. But I'll tell you, great guy.
Oh yeah.
Loved having him on the podcast. A great guy. I mean, there were numerous times where I'm in the stands and I'm saying, "Put in Coop."
Oh,
It
uh,
was
de
just great.
defense defensively, I would rather had him back behind the plate. 100%, 100% of the time, I would want him behind the plate. I just think he gave you that security that we were missing with Guillermo.
Yeah.
But Guillermo went through his offensive struggles, then he started to pick his struggles up and was becoming more of a consistent hitter. And at that point, it was like we need the offense production. The defense can kind of go backwards a little bit, and I think that's where we ended up was
Well, I think that so here's what changed. Guillermo starts becoming more productive offensively. The pitchers start changing the way that they're pitching so that they don't give that extra step at first base.
yeah.
Guillermo all of a sudden starts throwing people out, and it's like, okay, now this is the way that it's supposed to be going.
No, I
That's what.
think it's a case of that, and I'm glad that they're bringing him back to give him another opportunity and hopefully having a veteran presence, a number one catcher, but a veteran guy that's not going to be more of a mentor and not because Guillermo's still pretty young, so I think it was still one of those like you're battling for a position versus like hey learn.
Right.
And this is something you could build towards.
Yeah, you need a guy that's not going after you
Hmm.
and going at you. You want a guy that's going to be going along with you.
Yeah.
That's, you know, I mean, if you have a veteran catcher that really is in the I want to show you how to do things role, when that catcher isn't catching, he's still cheering for you. He wants to see the things that he's told you or taught you in in reality, right?
Yeah.
Live in the game. And so he's still as much in the game as if he was actually behind the plate. And that's what we need. We need
Yeah.
it's like that. To me, that's kind of priceless. And I think if you get a guy like that, you really do right the ship very quickly.
No, I agree. Um, so I know we were kind of discussing a little bit. We weren't sure if there was any third basemen on the team.
Right.
Technically, there's two that can't that do have third base experience. That's Jake Allgaier and Ethan Lopez. Right now, we could fill 8 spots. We're just missing another outfielder. Because one of the outfielders, Nick Ulch, can play first base as well. So we're just missing an outfielder at this point, is what we're looking at the roster. I mean,
Well, I mean, my phone hasn't rang, so
well,
I can also
that's
play first base. Um, and if I was in the outfield, as long as it's not a fly ball, because I
we'll
have
just we'll just
problems.
we'll
So,
just stick you on first so you can just stand there and catch the ball.
right, right. You were talking about, those moments at the steel yard that were kind of surprising moments, right?
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Cooper Edwards having that big game. I thought that was fantastic.
Yes.
Uh, Brandon Fields, you remember his
Yep.
he had where I think he got on base like 3 times, but he got thrown out like 3 times,
Yep. Yep.
running errors for his first time being like on base in a professional thing, and he's like, "Wait a second, I can't. I ran too far," and that I thought that was definitely a crazy, but great to see him getting good contact. And then Anthony Abbatini and some of his fielding
Yep. Yep.
was really good. Um, stuff like that I those were great parts of the year. Even if you're losing, you still see stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's why you go to the ballpark. That's why you go to the games because you just never know what you're going to, expect. And
I had so we had I think it was LG's mom was in town, and we went to Woo's house
Mhm.
and invited Peyton and his family along, and it was the night before Peyton pitched, and I think it was his first start, and he tanked. And after that, we're like, no more Woo's house before. So I take responsibility for that first game.
Got it. So the struggles of the RailCat season was all on Chuck. Got it.
Yes, yes. Well, hey, if it makes us win this year, I'll take all responsibility for last year.
Do you have any more roster thoughts of in your eyes what we're still missing?
Um, you know, yes. Uh, there's a guy that has played in the league for a couple of years, and for some reason, I can't think of his name right now. But as we were talking, I was thinking about him. I'll have to pull him up. He played for Lincoln for a couple of years, and I think he or might have played for, yeah, it was Lincoln, and I think he played for one other team. I think something like that. But a great outfielder, great bat, great contact hitter. One of those guys that you just love to have on the team because he's that spark plug. Um, I don't know why I can't remember his name. I'm really struggling with names today. But yeah, he's a guy. We'll post it once I figure out who he was. So that's a guy like that. I think we need a spark plug guy.
A
That's
guy we can't think of. Yeah, that's the guy we need. Got it. Got it. That guy. Got
You
it.
know what?
Okay.
I'll tell you exactly who he is here. I got my phone now. I'm gonna tell you exactly who he is. I didn't want to have to look it up, but I'm gonna look it up.
Well, while you look it up, I'll give my opinion. How about that? Does that work?
I'm ready.
Okay. Or like you're ready, like you have
I'm ready for your opinion.
oh my opinion. I
Yeah.
I, I really think I get the bringing the people up. A lot of these players are Black Sox players. Bringing in college pieces, I understand it. I just think that the hunger with the roster rules that are different now as versus what they were a handful of years ago was, you had the right to first refusal sort of deal. You kind of claimed them. But this year and last year, there's no more of that. So going out and trying to get other people's quote unquote guys in the Atlantic League or a frontier player that might be aging out or a pioneer player, pioneer a little bit different. But like an Atlantic guy that may not have been producing at the highest level, bring him to the American Association, bringing someone from another team. Like we just, there doesn't seem to be a lot of like within independent baseball. It seems more like, hey, let's grab people that are on the way outside of it and try to bring it in. So I think having a name that's familiar with independent baseball is what we're lacking in. I think that's what we've been lacking in a handful of years. You just need that experience of, hey, this guy's been through the ropes, been through the ringer, he understands the situation, and to help the younger guys. There's nothing wrong with getting the younger guys now, but again, if you want to consistently build a roster and keep it going and keep the train kind of moving, you still need the older pieces with the younger pieces. So when the younger pieces get older pieces, it just kind of flip-flops itself through. I understand it's not easy because a lifespan of someone playing in independent baseball is 2 to 3 years.
I got my guy.
You got your guy.
Aaron Tackett.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. He played in the Japan Winter League this year. He's got a 368, 478, 631, 1.1 OPS, 18 games, 41 at bats, 2 home runs, 4 doubles, 12 RBIs, 7 runs. Not bad.
No.
He's the guy that will get on base. He's the guy that you'd love to have as your number five, number two. He's the guy that he's the guy that scares you when you're going up against him. So
Agree.
he's the guy that I would want to have on my team. Um, that being said, also going through my list of wonderful people. And I just realized that wonderful GM Anthony follows me on Twitter, so I did not know that. That's wonderful.
Well, I don't get followed by anyone. I don't even have the RailCats. They're not even following me. So like it's just one of those that good for you, Chuck. I'm glad that
I
someone's
I mean, I got Augie Voigt follows me. He was great, former RailCat. He just announced that he retired. I was kind of
Mhm.
bummed out about that. Would love to have a guy like Gally Cribbs Jr. on the team. Oh man, that would like if I was bedridden, final days of my life, make a wish calls and says, "What can we do for you?" I'm gonna say Gally Cribbs Jr. is a rail cat. I just want to see one game, and then that's it. That's the end.
Got it. Okay.
Uh,
We'll make sure to whisper that into Lamar's ear. We'll just go down when he walks out onto the field and just say Cal Kids Jr. and walk away. That's all we gotta say.
uh, I don't know that that would work. Um, maybe.
It might.
I think Lamar listens.
I don't think he
You know,
listens.
I think that if
I don't think he
I
listens.
think that he does. I think that Lamar listens to the nonsense that we have to say.
I don't think he
Uh,
does. I think he goes, yeah, no, and turns this off.
really?
Yes.
I don't think so. I think he
I
listens. I think that he should listen. You know,
this is. so that he could lose brain cells listening to this?
I think that there's a lot other things that he could be doing that would be worse than listening to us, you know. So that being said, I do want to share a story that I mentioned that Aaron played for Lincoln. I do want to share a story about my trip to Lincoln that we
Okay,
could probably squeeze into this wonderful short podcast. Um,
always.
so, I made a trip to Lincoln and me and Natasha, and we were like really surprised um, at the way that we were received there. And I think that this is kind of a testament to American Association Baseball. Um, because our goal when we go places is to be the loudest fans, and we are not reserved about it at all. And we will cheer for our people, or we will just totally say nonsense things about the opposing players just to distract them, right? And so here we are. There's a lot of people. Beautiful uh, government paid field, right? We'll mention that. Um, Beautiful government paid stadium. Mention that, right? But we're there and we're cheering and we're like, people are like, you're here from Gary? You're rooting for Gary? Yeah, we are. And so much so that the employees were coming over and talking to us. And then, like, something crazy happened. Uh, we noticed that there were kids cheering for the RailCats. Now, what I like to do when I'm at away games is I like to bribe kids into cheering for the RailCats in exchange for maybe a baseball, right? So, but the deal is they have to be as loud and obnoxious as we are. And so next thing you know, we have a lot of loud and obnoxious kids by us that are also cheering as loud as they can for the RailCats. And it kind of turns the tides a little bit. But this was not our doing. These kids were wearing RailCats t-shirts. And I was like, what is going on here? And so I talked to the kids and come to find out, and this is where I came up with a brilliant idea. Um, they were actually Little League team that were the RailCats. And they went to the game to cheer on the team that they were named after, right? And so, as this team of RailCats wearing RailCat shirts in Lincoln, Nebraska, are cheering and we're being loud and obnoxious, the RailCats go on to win the game. And I made the suggestion that these kids get to go out on the field and shake hands with the players, and they got to.
Oh,
So in
nice.
that line where they, do their handshakes, the kids got to go out there with the players, give them high fives and everything. And then I had one of the players have all of the kids sign a baseball for me. And so that's one of the baseballs that I have back here. The next game we show up at the next day. Uh, and as we go to get our tickets at Will Call, Lincoln has two of their giveaway jerseys that they have found to give me and Natasha
Hmm.
uh, as a thank you for coming to the games and that. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I
I think that's crazy. I think that it's wonderful, right? It's not only is it a hey, thanks for coming, but it's also a, hey, we'd love to see you wearing our stuff too. We need fans, more fans like you guys.
well, we have definitely gone off the way beaten path of what I had planned for this. I had a card here of all the things that we were going to cover, and out the window. So,
I, you asked me before what was a takeaway from talking to the guys on the podcast. Um, my takeaway is that Joe, if you're listening, you need to hire a guy like Ryan. That's my takeaway. You need to hire a guy that knows the inside and outside of all of these leagues, that knows the players of these leagues, knows the stats of these players, but not only that, also knows how, stats lie and how these guys actually are, and can have that list of 10 players in each position that can be there at a moment's notice or that are available to jump up, right? And that you need a guy like that. And it's too much to put on Lamar's plate.
I
So
agree.
that's my big takeaway. That Joe, you need something like that.
So Chuck, you have a final thought for this week?
Oh, you know what? This has been a wonderful podcast. And wow, the phenomenal job that you do just piecing this all together. Priceless. I think that we're gonna have hopefully we have some more signings this week. Hopefully we get a big namer and that we see something that we're just like really excited about. But till then,
Yeah. Well, this will be a fun one. So he's Chuck Polarek. I'm Kyle Svetich. Enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this, and go Cats.
okay, it's
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.